just only focusing on that because there's just so much more I think that you can get out of the experience. And then on the music side, we took the money that I raised and I put out my third album. And so I'm working on my fourth right now, but the third album was called Keep the Faith. Okay. And one of the songs that I put on it was the Silk Road song. Now, some of your listeners may be familiar with the Silk Road, some maybe not. It's a bit of a shit show, for lack of a better term, in terms of a court case. I mean, it's really, really messy. But what I learned getting familiar with the case from both Ross's mother, Lynn Ulbricht, and also becoming friends with Ross, visiting him personally many times in the prison, the case was not everything that it appeared to be on the surface. There was a lot of corruption. There's a lot of political motivation for creating the Silk Road, the idea that we own our bodies. No one should be able to tell us what to put in and out of them. You know, all this kind of stuff that really is not touched on when you hear all the salacious headlines. So I wrote a Silk Road song in order for people to become a little bit more open-minded and maybe a little bit more awake to the fact that Ross is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the drug war victims that are around the world. And so Ross did a picture of me while in prison, well, he's still in prison, double life plus 40 years for nonviolent crimes. He drew a photo of me from a photo that a friend had drawn, and I used that as my album cover. This is a birthday present, but I thought, what better way to sort of bring attention to this and say, look, if I was signed to a major record label, would I be able to have this album cover done by some jail guy? I mean, maybe not. Maybe, and also, that's my prerogative as an artist. And while commercialism is important, you also need to kind of meet the needs of the fans. And I think that with an artist point, you can kind of bring the artists and the fans together and have that base layer secured. And then if you want to work with other aspects of the music industry, which you should, because you can't do it all yourself, right. That's available to you. But the center point to me that's most important to preserve is that artist and fan relationship. And so that's what we worked on with the Coin.
The Coin. Okay, excellent. Wow, this is the story here is quite fascinating on how this worked out. And obviously, you know, the Tatiana Coin, I'm guessing, has evolved from your initial conception to what's happening right now. So where do you see the future of the Tatiana Coin right now? Or is it going to be kept kind of where it's at and then you'll develop something else beyond that?
Well, I mean, Tatiana Coin, in the way that I envision it, is very difficult to implement with today's legal framework. And also because we need the platform. You know, the platform is built. We're currently fundraising for it. So it's not exactly as easy as in 2017 when there was the big ICO boom. We were advised at the time, because we were going to do an ICO too, but our attorneys were like, not such a good idea. And, you know, when I think about Tatiana Coin, while I think of it right now as just like an artist collectible for my fans to support me, the vision is really to have that interaction, which is empowered by the platform. But also, if you eventually have a lot of different artists that are trying something like this out, I'd love to be able to open it up to a pool of investors. But the problem with investing in a single artist is the single artist's success is basically like 1 in a billion, right? Super difficult to pull off. And so if you did it in bundles, for example, if you had like a bundle of 50 artists or 10 artists or whatever it is, I think that might be a little bit more easy to invest in. But then you also need the volume of different coins to play against each other. Eventually, could I see an artist coin market fluctuating the same way any kind of other exchange would? Of course. But I think that that's really far off. In the interim, what I'd really like to see is that investment opportunity in a way where it's valuable for the investor, where they're not just doing it as a vanity project, and where it actually can provide some meaningful support for the artist. Because, you know, one of the things that is crummy about a crowdfunding campaign is that it's dependent on if your friends have money. And if you live in the ghetto, well, guess what? You don't have much ability to garner that support. So if you can see it as more of a commercial investment on the investor side, if you can figure out a way to make that actually useful for them, I think it's a really fun investment class. But I don't think that we're there yet. And also, you know, you have to be really careful with artists doing coins, because they could accidentally be a security, and then next thing you know, the SEC is knocking on your door, and you're like, I just want to make music, you know, and that's not a good, that's not really a good aesthetic for the crypto community. Right. But I do think that having more artists involved and having them understanding the benefit of this technology beyond just to themselves, but to humanity
Hmm.
would be a really great way for that message to get out in an authentic way.
Sure.
Right now, you have a lot of people talking about Bitcoin, but when you have an artist communicating an idea, you have an automatic relationship with your fans. It's really hard to replicate in just like your day to day.
Hmm.
And so if we could leverage that trust that fans have, artists are great messengers for this. I say this all the time. Bitcoin is more rock and roll than rock and roll. I mean, it's really a big disruptor. So I hope that other people will take advantage of it.
Yeah. So so there are a lot of musicians who do listen to this podcast. If they're interested in learning more, because obviously this is a newer kind of concept, and maybe they had not thought about this as a way to monetize their music, how do you recommend they get started and work with you on this?
Sure. Well, I mean, they could go to token.fm and sign up there. I think that bar a funding of a program, it's really kind of early for people to be taking advantage of it
Sure.
because you can't get that full level of experience. That
Hmm.
being said, we've done a token.fm like white label version, so artists can put it in on their back end, and so they can start accepting crypto for their work, setting different pricing, having different kinds of interactions with their fans that they weren't able to do before, and that's not dependent on the platform.
Okay.
So I think that the concept of a white label inversion of what we've been doing is something that we've been playing with a little bit more lately, because it doesn't really require the platform to be fully built out and having tons and tons of people on it in order to give value to the fans.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, the fan wants access to you, not to like 20 other people. Maybe they do, but you want them, show off the goods for you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay, good. So, okay, also along this way, you have created Crypto Media Hub, and so what was that like creating it, and why did you choose to also start this agency?
Sure. Well, I picked the name because it was pretty neutral, and I was in a bit of a pickle when I came up with the company. So I had been working with Bitcoin Magazine, and I was doing a tour around Australia and New Zealand. I was traveling with Andreas Antonopoulos and Pamela Morgan. We were creating this great video content. It was going to be so wonderful.
Hmm.
And then they fired everybody because they were having a hard time closing the sale of Bitcoin Magazine from one party to another. And so they basically shut us down, and it was very sudden. And I was stranded in Australia, and I thought to myself, well, then I better find something new to do with my time. And so I basically created it as a media buying company. So I didn't know that this was a thing that exists because, I had a music business background. But what I noticed was when people were asking me for advertising options, we didn't always have the right the right things that they would really need in order to bring their product to market. For
Hmm.
example, it would be like a company that we didn't work with that type of company. And so what I ended up doing was creating relationships with all the different media outlets in the crypto space and then offering it to advertisers just as a service. Here, I'll help tell you how to spend your advertising money. And then I would get a small kickback from the media outlets because I was serving as outside sales. And then the advertiser would basically save time and money working with me, and it just didn't cost them anything additional.
Right.
So it was a nice model, but we've sort of evolved into different things. And it's constantly evolving. I have white label teams that I work with. I have people that I bring in, people that I work with on a daily basis. So it's kind of evolving.
Hmm.
But so predominantly we focused on PR and marketing. We also do a lot of things with events. And like most recently, I did an event in New York over Consensus. And that was a music and comedy event that was really fun and something a little bit different for the community. So constantly staying busy. I do a lot of advising with different projects as well. So yeah, Crypto Media Hub's there, and it allows me to do some of my more creative stuff. And I really like working with other companies in this space, although I will say that that can get a little bit problematic because you don't
Hmm.
have control over their output, and that could, accidentally have a bad reflection on me if I
Sure.
can't control all the things.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. So with what you're working on, I guess in a couple different spaces, from the artist side and then also the advertising side, there is, obviously one of the big topics right now in this space is adoption and why more companies don't accept certain coins and when can it be more mainstream. In your experience, how do you see that road coming along more easily? Like, how do you see crypto adoption, or at least whatever however you want to define that, coming along so that artists and other organizations can actually take advantage of it and not feel like a foreign topic?
I think we just need more time. I mean, people are definitely getting used to the concept of Bitcoin. People are getting used to the concept of blockchain. I think it's just a matter of time and messaging. You know, the more people that you have that speak like English and not just tech, I think that's always helpful.
Sure.
I love seeing more women getting involved in this space. I always say women are natural communicators and are oftentimes in charge of the household finances.
Mm-hmm.
So turning this a little bit from, I don't know, some people think it's a male-focused technology, but I don't. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of different people to get out there. So sharing those stories, I think, is really important. That's what I've kind of focused on a lot, is just kind of Bitcoin in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But it is going to take a while, and that's okay too. You know, it gives me more time to hodl.
Definitely. All right. So with everything that you've done and experienced so far over your very interesting journey, what would you say has been the best advice that you've ever received?
Buy Bitcoin. Duh. I mean, seriously, if I did that with take any kind of investment or thing that I'm like, oh, I should do this thing. No, all of the answers just go back to buy Bitcoin. Just send your money. I know that's sort of anti the message of my song, you know, use Bitcoin whenever you pay. No, Bitcoin whenever you save. I'm changing it around. No, I mean, I don't know. All joking aside, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that I attribute to where I am today, and I think that grit is really important. You know, just being able to get back up and deal with it. Also feel your feelings. I think it's important to feel what you're feeling. Sometimes people, they try and suppress you, and I don't know why that is, but I don't care for it. I think it's good. You know, if you're feeling something, like my gut is usually right, and anytime I don't listen to my gut, I usually regret it. So I don't know. I mean, it's a balance as you get older in general, to be able to listen to yourself and then to also know when yourself is kind of talking you into the wrong direction. So I don't know. Not the best advice, but I'm going to stick with my original answer. Buy Bitcoin.
I think that's fantastic advice. So actually, with your advice, since you're somebody who did get in earlier when the price was much cheaper, now let's say people who are just experiencing it, it's, you know, somewhere in the 8,000 mark. Is that, like, do you regularly try to, you know, buy in little bits at a time?
If
or how
I had any cash, I would spend it all on Bitcoin. That's all I care about. It's like, come on, it's like a golden, you know, pot at the end of the tunnel or whatever. That's what I want. I want the pot of gold, you know. I think, I mean, what else are you going to spend your money on? Jewelry? Clothes? You don't need those things. You've got like a couple t-shirts, you're fine. Just buy more Bitcoin. Eventually it'll be much better.
Sure. Okay. Excellent. So if the listeners would like to get a hold of you, see more of your work, or potentially get in touch with you, where is the best place they can go to do that?
Sure. There's a few different places. So thetatianashow.com is one of my podcasts. Proofoflovecast.com is the relationship podcast. It's been really a lot of fun. TatianaMoroz.com is where people can find all my music, and they can support me on there, and cryptomediahub.com. Plus, I'm on Twitter, Queen Tatiana, and I'm on YouTube and all the other places, Steam It and stuff like that. So come around. Come say hi.
Perfect. I'll put the links to those in the show notes so people can click right through.
Great.
Great. Awesome. Well, Tatiana, thank you so much. This has been absolutely a pleasure.
Thanks so much. I enjoyed myself. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. You too.
Thank you for joining us today on The Coin Chat. Join us on Telegram on t.me/thecoinchat, where we discuss a range of topics on cryptocurrency. And visit us on patreon.com/thecoinchat for show notes, outtakes, and previews of additional content. Or follow us on our website, which is www.thecoinchat.net. And remember to like and subscribe to us on your way out. To the moon. Until next time.